RedZoneSports.Bet, the British home of American sports.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Heads. In association with Red Zone Sports, we are the show that delves into our Christmas stockings to take a look at the Week 16 games, the penultimate week of the season, plenty to be decided. I'm Simon Millen from Lindy's Sports, and I'm pleased to say Santa's little helpers this afternoon are Sam Morgan from The Verge magazine and Matt Phillips from UKDraftGuide.com. We're going to start, gents, with the first game of the week. It's the Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. It's a key battle in the NFC South. The Falcons have won 5 of the last 7 meetings. They are playing catch-up, but they did beat the Saints 2017 a couple of weeks ago. Who have we got?
I fancy the Saints, to be fair, for this. I just like the weapons that they're obviously putting there, and obviously seeing the dynamic of the run game now with the Saints, sort of adding on to that, and you know, I've touched on sort of the Falcons before. I just feel that there's still something, a bit of a hang up from last year. It's still sort of, when it comes to sort of the big games, can they see it through? I think sort of when they're playing the whipping boys, we see like, oh, there's the Falcons again. Yeah, they could go on to do something. And then when it comes to these big games, if things aren't going well for them, there is something there that sort of, oh, we're going to get beat again, and they sort of get rolled over.
I tend to slightly disagree in the respect. I think they've had a pretty tough schedule compared to a lot of teams. You know, it's the 4th hardest schedule in the NFL. You know, they did beat Dallas on the Dallas at home when Dallas were flying. They've beaten the Saints when they've needed to. They've got a tough game against the Panthers next week at home, but win one of those 2 games, and I think they could well see 3 teams from that division going through. I don't know what you think, Matt. And they've won the last 3 against them, but I think the last time they won 4 on the trot against them was in between 19. I'm going to have to look this up here. I think it's between 1995 and 1999 when they won 10 straight. So they're on a little bit of a streak against them.
They're coming into form just at the right time. I mean, if you want to find your form, this is the time to do it. And
they did scrape past the Bucks last week, to be fair.
They did. But you know, that happens a lot, doesn't it? Teams tend to be playing down to teams that they expected to beat. I think that I like the Falcons in this one personally. Right. I think they're playing, you know, a good brand of football right now. They look confident, and if they get to the playoffs, then they'll be fully deserved with the schedule they've had and the remaining divisional games.
You wouldn't want to face one of these 2 teams, would you?
No.
Definitely not.
That's
and I think that Falcons defense is a lot better than people think it is. We'll see. Like I said, they dominated them at 2017 in the last game, but it was close. You know, the score was closer than the actual game itself. But let's have a look at our teams, Matt, because we've got the Miami Dolphins. Sorry about this, Arizona fans, but Miami Dolphins going to Kansas City. Now, the Dolphins are still theoretically in contention for a wild card spot. If they beat Kansas City and they beat Buffalo, they hold several tiebreakers against those other teams. Now, they've won 3 of the last 4 against them in the series, and they've won 8 of the last 11 meetings. So they might just have Kansas City's number. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if the game was in Miami, I'd definitely favour Miami. I'm fairly confident from what I've seen, not just because the Chiefs have won 2 games, and not just because I'm a fan, but also they've gone back to the basics that we talked about a few weeks ago. They've gone back to the basics on defense and offense, and they're running the ball well, they're blocking, they're stopping the run now, which was a weakness.
Right.
They've got 2 linebackers that are coming into form now, in Pierre Louis and Reggie Ragland.
Yeah.
And the corners, obviously the pass rush has been a great development, which again helps the secondary. And then obviously Marcus Peters and Revis is something that's not been mentioned. Revis has been playing really well the last 2 weeks. So I like what's happening there, and I think the Chiefs will have enough to do it, and the explosive plays from Kareem Hunt or over the top to Tyreek Hill.
Only 2 weeks ago that Miami beat New England and beat them pretty comprehensively. We saw the good Jay Cutler there with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Goes up to Buffalo, 4 fumbles, 3 interceptions, and no touchdowns, and which Jay Cutler's going to show up, I guess it is, isn't it?
It is, and I just feel, I wonder what sort of system, do they change the system? I feel like Miami they play one way, and then it works against one team and it doesn't work against another. There's no sort of game plan between these between the different teams. It's like there's no imagination there. Sorry, Jay Cutler, but you only play one way. In terms of this, I suppose. But I mean, in terms of this game, I do fancy the Chiefs. Sorry, Dolphins fans.
That's all right.
Sorry, mate. I just think Kansas. There was a little bit of a blip, and it's like they've almost found a little bit of form again. Sort of
6-game blip, wasn't it?
Well, I tried to say little blip, just trying to be nice.
The Chiefs got cute on offense, and the defense was without identity. Yep. And sometimes teams need to have that run where they realise we need to go back to basics.
Yep.
I think your offensive line a little bit got away. It was like there was a little bit, it got away with it a little bit. They weren't the best. Yeah. It's like Alex Smith was completing things, and Kareem Hunt was obviously like was being Kareem Hunt during that time, and it was like where the offensive line then, once they got found out, it just eventually did sort of.
It was a bend don't break, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then but now I think they've sort of mended it a little bit. Probably put a band-aid on it for now.
Well, the thing is as well is that they got away from the offensive play calling, got away from the run game. So Kareem Hunt wasn't down to a lack of talent or he's having poor form. It's the fact they moved away and went very one-dimensional, hoping for the single coverage on some of the great playmakers that they have. They've gone back to the run game, but also the offensive line has to have a lot of credit, and they've got some starters back who are now rounding into healthiness. So
you're both on the Chiefs. That's good enough for me. Seattle at Dallas is the next one. Dallas have won 6 of the last 9 meetings at home, but all those wins have come by 8 points or more. So you'd think, bearing in mind Seahawks were absolutely trounced by the Rams at home and the injuries that they've got, this would be a bit of a cakewalk for Dallas.
I fancy Dallas for this, with Zeke being about as well now, and obviously you can fall back on him. Yeah, that secondary at the Seahawks is beaten up now, and I think someone like Bryant's going to obviously have a nice day for him. I think so. I do fancy that, but the dancing feet of Russell Wilson, you do not know what you're going to get from him. He's ridiculous. Every time he picks on it suddenly is a crowd of people who just pop out someone's legs.
It's like he's just
insane.
Really talked about him for the MVP award, but we really probably should have done.
You could do, but I just think sometimes with the MVPs, the team still has to be performing around that person.
Totally.
That's been the shame
offense,
of it,
isn't it?
Yeah, and that's been the issue.
Well, the Seahawks have never won back-to-back trips to Dallas. And they did win the last meeting 13-12. That was a couple of years ago, 2015. So I think the writing's on the wall for Seattle now. It's do or die for them. You have a look at the division there. They're 8-6. They're the 8th seed. They need help now.
I agree. Yeah, Simon. I think that the do or die nature of this game. I just think that Seattle. I'm always hesitant to write off a team who's been embarrassed in the NFL because in the NFL,
pride, isn't it?
In the NFL. How many times do you see it where a team's been written off, and then they're made a mockery, and there's nothing more to motivate a team than that, to read the articles, to read the social media. And I think they're still a good team. Obviously, they do over rely on Russell Wilson, and not just saying this because my brothers and some of my friends support Seattle Seahawks. Just want to make sure I get a Christmas present, but. I just think that Seattle, it means more to them, and they'll do it. But it'll be on Russell Wilson's back.
With Seattle, though, I mean, for me as well, we talked about sort of bringing in sort of new ideas. The team's aging. They've got the oldest coach in the league. Yep. There's a point where people go, well, we know what they're going to do this week, and you can kind of sort of play to that a little bit. I know there's some injuries there. I just think you've got to try and keep freshening up, and you can't. We're starting to see now the teams that do rely on that, like maybe one player. And you take Russell Wilson out of that team, and do they go and win any games at this moment in time?
Well, they don't score many points. That's the issue, isn't it?
I just think there's a point where that Seahawks team needs to freshen up a hell of a lot, maybe the way they play and the players. I think there could be a great project there, but I think they need to sort of really freshen that up.
They never really seem to have a good possession receiver. They don't really tend to have many options, pass catch options, other than at tight end. Yeah. It just seems to be sort of an area that they have a bit of a blind spot with. Yep.
That makes sense. I suppose the Christmas raffle, Christmas church raffle prize, the last prize in the raffle there is Oakland against Philadelphia. Philadelphia have won the division. I mean, on paper it's a big game, but these guys rarely sort of meet. I think that was the interesting angle from me. They've only met 12 times. What do the Eagles do? Do they rest players? Do they continue with what they've got?
Me personally, my own philosophy, right or wrong, is not to take your foot off the gas, because you want to be. Yes, you're scared of injuries, but what's the best way? Maybe you could tone down practice in the week to accompany for the game.
Yep.
I'd put out your starters and just keep rolling with it.
What do we make of Nick Foles' performances so far?
I think he's done a good enough job. I think if I'm Nick Foles and I looked at that, at least you're coming into a team where you're going, look what I've got to actually play with. Like it's like suddenly, you know,
good opportunity for him.
Your dad leaves you a Ferrari, off you go. You know,
It's a great balance.
yeah. I mean, I agree. You don't want to take your foot off the gas, but there has to be an eye on those future games. It's not like if you hadn't made it, you can't have an eye on the playoffs when you haven't made it yet. So you don't suddenly go, oh, we should rest them for sort of the big games, because if you lose the 2 games leading up to the big game, you're obviously in trouble. What I would say is that, you know, the guys in practice, you know, the guys that actually haven't had many snaps, is like get them in practice, because you guys are going to actually probably see a lot more of the game. So it's like keep the legs going of the starters, just to sort of again build momentum, but just say, look, you're not going to play a majority of this game.
You can always introduce a snap count.
Yeah.
Yeah, on certain players.
But do that. I think you can't. So I think Raiders will probably take that advantage, maybe potentially. Not saying they're going to win the game, but I think this game will be a lot closer than what it could have been.
Long East Coast trip for them. Are they done, the Raiders, this year?
Yeah.
6-8.
The best you can hope for is 8-8, and they've not got any of the tiebreakers.
Slightly disappointing for me, the Raiders this year. To be honest, there was a lot of promise at the start as well.
I'll tell you what, let's have a chat about that when we get to the hurry up, shall we? We've got a good question there. So, Matt Phillips from UKDraftGuide.com. Enjoyed your company as always. Sam Morgan from The Verge magazine. Pleasure as always. Great insight, guys. Thank you very much. One piece of late news we've got here. The quarterback shunned by the NFL after he was seen running away from Roger Goodell's Christmas dinner table wearing party hats, telling bad jokes and carrying small plastic toys, has been named as Colin Kaepernick. From all the crew at Red Zone Sports and the SportsHeads, from ours to yours, in the words of the great Shakin' Stevens rather than P. Diddy, Merry Christmas everyone, we'll see you on the other side, goodbye.
RedZoneSports.Bet, the British home of American sports.
Hello and welcome to the SportsHeads. The weather outside may be frightful, but my 2 guests are delightful. It's a joy to welcome Red Zone Sports co-founder Warren Lambias, whose wife thinks he's the salt of the earth and that's why she keeps you in the cellar. It's equally a joy to welcome Matt Phillips from UKDraftGuide.com. Matt happens to think that marriage is a bit of a lottery. Warren and I actually disagree, because we think with the lottery you got at least half a chance.
Whoa. I've got to go home to my wife. I take no credit for that.
You've got to buy a ticket.
Quiet, gentlemen. I'm Simon Millen from Lindy Sports Magazine. It's my job to keep these two in line, which means that if I don't get strung up by fairy lights by the end of the show, I'm doing my job. Chaps, great to have you in the studio as always.
Have you been on the cracker jokes? That's what we want to know, yeah.
Actually, there are some rules here. We have some crackers in front of you. And
would you like to pour one?
When you agree with my betting tips, you are allowed to open a cracker. Those are the rules today. New set of rules. We're going to start with...
I've just got some booze to make your drinks better, to be quite honest, to make your jokes better. So.
Miami Dolphins are 10-point underdogs going to Kansas City. This is a playoff implication game. The Dolphins have won 3 of the last 4 meetings, and they've won the last 2 in Kansas City. Matt, you're a Kansas City fan. Mm-hmm. Do you agree that with my pick, the Dolphins cover the 10-point spread?
Well, I think when you're 6-8, you've got to grab hold of anything you can, and we've all been there as fans. I think I'm confident that the Chiefs will win this game. 10 points seems quite a lot, but it all depends. Will the Dolphins play hard for the full game, particularly if they're behind at halftime?
Okay.
I you know me, on big lines. I think the Chiefs, they seem to have found some of their early season groove in the last 2 games, but I would prefer to back the Dolphins plus 10.5. It's gone up to 10.5 on our site now. I think that, the Dolphins aren't a bad defensive team, and what we saw previous to the last 2 weeks was that people had figured out how to stop Kansas. Now, I think the Dolphins can keep that tight, and there's all the pressures on Kansas.
Yep.
So you're right, the Dolphins may have packed up, like other teams in the league now may have packed up, but I think most teams play hard to the end of the season, and I think that I'd be taking Dolphins plus 10.
Well, the Dolphins are only 2 weeks removed from beating New England, and beating them pretty comprehensively, but it's, Jay Cutler had 3 touchdowns there, but last week they go to Buffalo, he has 3 interceptions, 4 fumbles. It's a case of really which Jay Cutler shows up.
Yeah, and also if you look at the end of that game, I mean, they had a chance to go and win it when they got the onside kick, and then Jay Cutler just goes and shoots himself in the foot again. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, he was pushing for the game, but I would be taking Dolphins plus 10.5 with us. So if you want to get 10.5, come and bet with Red Zone at 2021.
Well, I'm hoping there's going to be free bets in those crackers. And since you've agreed with me, you can have a cracker with Matt.
A cracker with Matt.
I'll pour you a cracker, Warren.
Oh, look at that. No bang. Oh, there you go.
Oh, hang on. The gold is here.
The all-important joke.
There we go.
The joke is, what do you get if you see an Arizona Cardinals fan up to his neck in sand?
I don't know. What do you get if you see an Arizona Cardinals fan up to his neck in sand?
More sand.
Excellent joke.
You wrote these jokes, didn't you? Oh, my word.
I think
it's going to be a long show.
I think we better move on. The Indianapolis Colts at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Ravens are 13.5-point favourites here. The Colts have lost the last 2 trips to Baltimore, but they have won 9 of the last 11 meetings. So it's a bit kryptonite, really, the Colts, and they're getting 13.5 points. You're on the Colts.
I'm on the Colts, only again because the line's high. It's come down to 13 on our site. So, I think the Ravens look like a team that, they look a difficult team to play. And they could quite easily have their way with the Colts. But they struggle a bit scoring, the defence gets a disproportionate number of their points, so which could happen with the Colts. But I still think if you're putting a gun to my head, I would say Colts plus 13.5. I like high lines. I just think that you've got, as I've always say, the Ravens don't have to win that game by 13.5.
I'm going with the Ravens simply because I think they're in playoff contention. They need the game.
So you're going with the Ravens minus
13.
Now I watched last week's show, and last week's show I got a shout out when you were backing the Saints minus 16.5 and said, well, if Warren was here, he would be saying, 14.5. That line would be too big.
Exactly.
And I sat there, I watched the show, and
you were right.
As I watched the Jets come, I was like, see, it's too big a line. So even though I think it's highly likely that the Ravens win, I couldn't back anyone minus 13.5.
Okay, Matt.
No, totally agree. Bookmakers are never wrong, are they? So I'm gonna play the smart money.
Well, we were talking about my wife earlier on, and she would say I was wrong a lot, wouldn't you, darling? So yeah.
Ravens will win, but I'm not confident about the 13 points.
Well, look, I'm going to be kind because it's Christmas. You may not have agreed with me, but you've agreed with each other. So by all means, have another crack.
It's a democracy here.
I'm not sure this is such a win, to be quite honest with you. Oh, at least there's a.
We've got a yo-yo.
A yo-yo
and a hat.
It's a bit like your record this year, Warren.
I think we might have to put it toe to toe.
Now this is going to be different, this one, because it's not actually one of Simon's.
No, there is another one in there.
Can we go with this one?
No.
That's
they're not mine.
That's the store.
These football
it's
ones.
It's an NFL show.
What is Kyle Rudolph's favourite pizza?
What is Kyle Rudolph's
favourite?
Kyle Rudolph's favourite pizza? I don't know.
One that's deep pan, crisp and even. Oh my word!
One that's deep pan, crisp and even. What a great joke that was. I think we better move on.
I apologise, everyone. I really, Matt and I take no part in these jokes. Really,
it's Christmas. You need to have another drink. The LA Rams at the Tennessee Titans. Now, Tennessee Titans are 6.5-point underdogs at home to the Rams. The Rams have lost the last 2 in the series and 3 of the last 4 at Tennessee, so that's perhaps why the line is such a big line for a dog at home, bearing in mind they've got to win this.
Genuinely, I don't think the line has anything to do with what's happened in the past. I've said that before, but when the clever guys like Steve and Darmish are making our line, they don't care about what's happened previously. They care about how the teams match up at this moment. That said, I personally think the Tennessee Titans aren't as good as their record suggests. I've said it all season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Watching them against San Francisco, they're not a very good team.
No.
You know, if you're not finding Delaney Walker, then you're struggling. And I like the Rams. They want to see if they can somehow move up the pecking order in terms of the playoffs. So I like the Rams -6.5.
Okay. Matt?
I have to agree. I think we've spoken about the Titans and how sort of bland and vanilla they are. They're not as good as their record suggests. They just tend to be in a weak division.
Right.
So yeah, I'm with the Rams for the win.
Okay.
Um,
I'm partly going with Tennessee, because they're the home team. They've got an awful lot to play for. It's a pretty ordinary line. I want a few more points, but the thing was last week. It's the first time in an awfully long time. It doesn't happen very often. I think it's only happened twice this century, where all the favourites, not necessarily on the handicap, but all the favourites have won. So I'm looking for a few dogs this week, which wouldn't naturally, ordinarily I'd be on the Rams, but I'm just trying to find a few upsets with the points.
I think this game really depends on how will a franchise like the Rams have not been used to winning in recent seasons. How will they react to winning like that, dominating a big win like that? And that's the big question for them. That's a challenge in itself.
Well, I think they turn up. I think Tennessee, they're a choking team, if you ask me. They, when they've got a chance,
they're not playing well
they
at all.
choke. So I will be on the Rams.
Well, I'm not crackers, but you can have one.
Oh no! This is like the worst Christmas
Come on,
ever.
we've only got 2 left. We can get this done.
Oh look, and it didn't pop
break
either.
again.
Here we go. That's the joke that come in the real cracker before Simon's one, which we'd rather have.
My joke?
Simon, which animal needs oiling?
I don't know.
Let's go for this.
Ryan's going to do it.
The man who stole Tom Brady's Super Bowl shirt also stole an advent calendar. He got 25 days. It's.
It'd be helpful if you could actually read it. An advert calendar. It's an advent.
Oh,
calendar.
did I? Advent. Sorry, I do apologise.
We try.
Calendar.
We do try.
What it is, I just need more booze, I think, to be quite honest.
Was 25 the PSI?
Of
the footballs.
Look, he's cracked one joke on your Christmas classic
We
jokes.
like that one. That was a good one. Okay, let's move on. Got a couple more games that we like. Buffalo Bills 11-point favourites at the New England Patriots.
They're the 11-point underdogs.
11-point underdogs at the Patriots. Sorry.
I like the Bills.
The Bills won 2 of the last 3 meetings in New England, but the Patriots have won 30 of the last 34 meetings. That's incredible. That's just ridiculous, isn't it?
New England
division rival.
This game is, the Bills will turn up. It means something for the Bills. New England. They'll win the game, I think, but will they win it by 11 points? This is the time in the season where I think Bill Belichick is starting to hide players and keep them back for the playoffs, despite what he says about every game. He quite often he's planning into the playoffs now. He doesn't want to show his hand.
Sure.
Bills turn up. Bills are. The New England defense still looks a little bit troublesome, and the Bills are going to run. New England struggle with the run, so I think the Bills are going to do okay.
That's great analysis.
Patriots, and I think they will win more than the 11 points.
Really?
Yeah.
You can't have a cracker.
Damn.
Whoa, we both win.
You can't have a cracker with that one because you don't agree with me on that one, Matt. I'm sorry. And plus, you're a Kansas City fan, and we've got you at the weekend. The last game, the last game I've got interest. I'm on Buffalo, by the way, with the points because I think Warren's made a fair case that they've got something to play for. They will. They might well stack the box against Buffalo, but I think they can run all over them personally. Seattle Seahawks +5 at the Dallas Cowboys. This is an intriguing one. Dallas have won 6 of the last 9 meetings at home. All those games have been won by 8 points or more. The Seahawks, though, have never won back-to-back trips in Dallas, so not for a long time anyway. I don't think they ever have actually. I've gone with the Seattle Seahawks despite all the injuries because I think they're obviously in desperation mode, and I think Russell Wilson will keep this close.
Well, I don't know. I literally just walked from my office to get round here, and the 2 traders, Darmish and Steve, that were in with, obviously Steve's more than just a trader, were saying, and they were saying 2 injuries on Dallas, and they were saying jump on the Seahawks. As I left, couldn't even tell you who it was, but that was literally walked straight round here. So I would go with the Seattle Seahawks as well, just because. Although remember Dallas have got Zeke back up there not this week, so that's.
Yep, count me in. Seahawks all the way for this one. They need to win the game, and they'll have enough to beat Dallas.
And sometimes a good team, I think Seattle is still a good team.
Yeah, they
After
are.
getting a shoeing, that's when you find out, that team goes, they won't be happy with what happened last week.
Okay. Gentlemen, we're all in agreement.
Oh, yeah. So it's,
Are we pulling this
one? You can
one?
have the last cracker.
Do you want to read the joke?
I think
I'm going to read the joke this time.
Because I said advert. Harking back to the former line.
By the way, go see Goulash. Right. that was in this one.
Was it? Marvellous.
If you had a car containing a Dallas Cowboys running back,
Yes.
a Cowboys linebacker,
Yeah.
and a Cowboys defensive back,
Yes.
who is driving the car?
I've no idea.
A cop.
Excellent joke. We like that one.
That one's actually been the better one.
They're
Yeah.
warming up now.
That's it, yeah. But I'm glad we haven't got any more.
We've got one more game to go through.
This is the biggest joke of them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know because I went on Cleveland last week and you've gone on this week 6.5 point underdogs at Chicago.
Let me tell you, the Cleveland Browns have been a terrible team all year. They found new ways to lose when they are facing it. They won't want to be 16-0, but that's not the reason why I'm picking. You can't run on the Browns. The Browns have got a really good run defense. They defended at the 1 yard or 2 yard line a couple of times last week, and the Bears game is all built on running. So I think if you're asking Trubisky to beat them during the air, I think that's going to be a little bit of a stretch for him. I know Chicago were once my team that I was waving a flag for. Not only that, I think now you've got Josh Gordon in there. He's got some weapons around him and he can score some points. So I think it means something to him. I think the fact that it's in Chicago rather than at the dog pound, I think that's going to help them because there's less pressure on them.
Right.
And I think 6.5 points. I fancy the Browns not only to cover but to actually win the game, and that's the funniest joke that you've had in those crackers.
I'm not sure that it is actually. I wouldn't be. Not a game I'd want to bet on, but certainly I think you made an excellent case for it.
Yeah. Going by the home advantage, I'm going with the Bears. Like Warren said, I think they if they get ahead in games and it'll be the same on Sunday, they look up at the scoreboard and see there's still 15 minutes left, and they'll find a way to undo all their good work.
Yeah, find a way for to throw away a 2-touchdown lead against Green Bay.
They cover 6.5.
Yes, they do. They've had their chance to win their game, which is when they were 21-7 up against the Packers. So not this weekend, sadly.
You think they lose by more than 6.5 points as well? The Chicago team.
I do.
Okay.
Great chaps. That's it for week 16's betting. Thanks, Matt Phillips. Great to have you along as always.
Thank you.
Warren Lambias.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas
to you both, to you and yours. Thank you for the wonderful studio that we find ourselves in. Don't forget to get your bets on as well, Matt, with RedZoneSports.Bet. I'm going to sign off with this. A little bit of breaking news. The Astronomer Royal has made an announcement. He's announced today that June the 21st will no longer be the longest day of the year. It will in fact be when the Colts meet the Browns. Merry Christmas. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
American football and my hot cheerleaders. It'll make you feel like a Yank. RedZoneSports.Bet, the British home of American sports.